Chapter 2 of The Plum and the Golden Vase, Chongzhen edition of Embroidered Portraits. Qiao Pan Niang is flirting under the curtain, and Lao Wangpo is talking about her skills in the tea house. The word sees She has lotus face and nice snow skin. She was born in Pingting and has already had her hair cut. Leaning against the door, the plum blossom half contained stamens, which seemed to be open or closed. When I first saw the curtain, I still felt shy. When I passed the building again, I felt so happy after receiving money. It is suitable for walking, standing, sitting, and even more suitable for snuggling. It is said that Wu Song came to the inn in front of the county that day, packed his luggage and bedding, handed it over to the soldiers to pick it up, and led him to his brother's house. When the woman saw him, she was as happy as if she had found a gold treasure. She quickly cleaned a room and settled in with Wu Song. Wu Song ordered the soldiers to go back and stay at his brother's house that night. When he got up early the next day, the woman also got up in a hurry and cooked soup and noodles with him. Wu Song washed and wrapped his clothes and went out to the county to paint his clothes. The woman said, "Uncle, I have drawn my breasts. Come home for breakfast earlier. Don't go to eat elsewhere." Wu Song responded and went. After arriving at the county, he finished painting and waited all morning. When he returned home, the woman made arrangements for dinner. The three of them ate together, and the woman held a cup of tea in both hands and handed it to Wu Song. Wu Song said, "It's up to my sister-in-law to bear the burden. Wu Song can't sleep or eat well. Tomorrow we'll send some local soldiers to take care of him." The woman kept shouting, "How can uncle be so careless? He doesn't serve others because of his own flesh and blood." Although he has this, when the little girl came to greet her, the servant saw him taking things and digging around, but she didn't rely on him. Even if the soldiers came, the servant would not clean the pot and the stove, so the slave would not look down on such people. Wu Song said, "I am so tired that I gave birth to my sister-in-law." There is a poem to prove it. Wu Song's appearance is not charming, and his sister-in-law's lust is unstoppable. When I came back to live in my home, I often looked at my quilt thickly because of my love sickness. Stop talking. Since Wu Song moved to his brother's house, he took some money and went out to Wu Da to buy cakes, tea and fruits to treat the neighbors on both sides. Due to elements came to favor Wu Song, Wuhan University arranged to return to the banquet again, so it was no problem. A few days later, Wu Song took out a piece of colorful stuff and made clothes with his sister-in-law. The woman laughed and said, "Uncle, how can I do this? Since it is given to the slave family, I dare not refuse it." She had no choice but to accept it and say hello. From then on, Wu Song only stayed at his brother's house. Wu Dai went to the streets to sell cooking cakes. Wu Song went to the county every day to take on errands, and no matter whether he came home late or early, the woman happily served Wu Song after tea and dinner, and Wu Song felt sorry for her. The woman often used words to tease him. Wu Song was a hard-hearted straight man. What you say is long, what you don't say is short. Unexpectedly, more than a month has passed. Looking at the weather in November, the wind has been blowing hard for several days. I can see thick clouds everywhere, and the snow is coming in the morning. What a heavy snow! How could you see that? But see, thousands of miles of dense snow cover, and auspicious curtains float in the sky. Gyeonghwa pieces dance on the front eaves. At this time, the Yen River was wet and stagnant, and the boat was sluggish. In an instant, the towers were overwhelmed, and the mountains and rivers were connected in silver. Flying salt and powder spread all over the sky. At that time, Lu Mingzhang was in charge, and the kiln sighed that there was no money. It snowed until the first watch that day, but it had already made the world full of silver, and jade crushed the universe. The next day Wu Song went to the county to draw Mao and did not return until noon. Wu Da was driven out early by his wife to do some business. So he went to Wang Po in the next room to buy some wine and meat, and went to Wu Song's room to make a pot of charcoal fire. She thought to herself, "I really flirted with him today, and I'm not afraid that he won't be affectionate." The woman stood alone and deserted under the curtain, and saw Wu Song coming back in the snow, walking on the scattered jade. The woman pushed up the curtain and said with a smile, "Uncle, are you cold?" Wu Song said, "Thank you, sister-in-law, for caring about me." After entering the door, he removed the felt hat. The woman took it with her hand, and Wu Song said, "I won't bother my sister-in-law." He brushed off the snow and hung it on the wall. Then he took off his belt, took off his green parrot silk jacket, and entered the room. The woman asked, "I've been waiting all morning. Why didn't my uncle come back for breakfast?" Wu Song said, "This morning, an acquaintance invited me to dinner, but he didn't have a cup again. I was impatient and walked all the way home." The woman said, "Humanity said, 'Since you are dead, please ask your uncle to go to the fire.'" Wu Song said, "Just right." He took off his oil boots, changed into a pair of socks, put on warm shoes, set up a stool, and sat on the ground near the brazier. The woman had already ordered Yinger to bolt the front door and close the back door. But he brought some cooked vegetables into the room and put them on the table. Wu Song asked, "Where has your brother been?" The woman said, "Your brother went out to do business and didn't come back. So my uncle and I had 3 cups of ourselves." Wu Song said, "It's not too late to wait for my brother to come home to eat." The woman said, waiting for him over there, before he could say anything. He saw Yinger and his daughter had already warmed up with a glass of wine. Wu Song said, "Teach my sister-in-law to take the trouble again." The woman also picked up a stool and sat down near the fire. There were cups and plates on the table. The woman held a glass of wine in her hand, looked at Wu Song and said, "Uncle, drink this cup to the full." Wu Song took the wine and drank it all. The woman sifted out another glass of wine and said, "It's cold," and my uncle drank from it in pairs. Wu Song said, "Sister-in-law invites you." Then she drank it all in one gulp. Wu Song sifted a glass of wine and handed it to the woman. The woman took the wine and sipped it, then poured another glass of wine and placed it in front of Wu Song. The woman exposed her breasts slightly, and the servant girl was half naked. She smiled and said, "I heard someone say that my uncle has a singer on the street in front of the county. Is this true?" Wu Song said, "Sister-in-law, don't listen to other people's nonsense. I, Wu, have never been this kind of person." The woman said, "I don't believe it. I'm afraid my uncle's words don't mean what he means." Wu Song said, "When my sister-in-law doesn't believe it, just ask my brother." The woman said, Don't tell him. What does he know? It's like he is drunk and dreaming of death. If he knew it, he would not sell cooking cakes. Uncle, please give me a cup." He sifted 3 or 4 cups and drank. The woman also had 3 glasses of wine down her belly, which stirred her heart, and she could bear it. Desire is like fire, and he only talks gossip. Wu Song also knew about it, and he only lowered his head, but did not come to solicit. The woman got up to boil the wine. Wu Song was in his room, but he was making a fire with chopsticks. The woman took a long time to warm up a pint of wine, came into the room, held the pint in one hand, squeezed Wu Song's shoulder with the other, and said, "Uncle only wears these clothes. Isn't it cold?" Wu Song I felt half for 70% uncomfortable and ignored him. Seeing that he didn't respond, the woman came to grab the fire chopsticks with both hands, and said, "Uncle, you don't know how to make a fire, so I'll stir the fire with you. Just heat it up like a brazier." Wu Song was 89% anxious, but be silent. The woman didn't look at Wu Song's anxiety, so she dropped the chopsticks, sifted out a glass of wine, took a sip, and left half of the wine. She looked at Wu Song and said, "If you are willing, eat the remaining half of my wine." Wu Song took it with his hand, threw it on the ground and said, "Sister-in-law, don't be so shameless." He pushed the woman with just a push of his hand. Wu Song opened his eyes and said, "Wu isn't a pride man. With his teeth and hair, not a pig or dog that corrupts customs and hurts human ethics. Sister-in-law, don't be so shameless. For such things, if there is any trouble, I, Wu Song, will." The woman recognizes her sister-in-law with her eyes, but does not recognize her with her fists. The woman blushed at his words and asked Yinger to clean up the dish and guy. She said, "I'm just playing tricks on myself. You have to take it seriously. You are so disrespectful." He accepted the guy and went to the kitchen. Exactly, falling flowers follow the flowing water deliberately, but flowing water ruthlessly loves falling flowers. When the woman saw that Wu Song could not move, she was robbed by him. Wu Songzi was angry and thinking in his room. It was the time to apply for the license, and Wu Tie carried his burden and returned in the heavy snow. He pushed the door open and put down his burden. When he entered the inner room, he saw the woman's eyes were red from crying, so he asked, "Who are you making trouble with?" The woman said, "It's all you, a diplomat who doesn't live up to your expectations. Come to bully me, Wu Dao. Who dares to bully you?" The woman said, "Who is Jingxi, Zheng Naiwuer? I saw him coming back from the heavy snow, and I kindly arranged some wine and food with him. When he saw there was no one around, so he teased me with his words. Just when Yinger saw it, I didn't rely on him." Wu Dao said, "My brother is not that kind of person. He has always been honest. Don't raise your voice and ask the neighbors to hear the joke." Wu Die ignored it. The woman then came to Wu's second room and called out, "Second brother, you haven't had any snacks. I'll have some with you." Wu Song just kept silent, thought for a long time, and went out the door. Wu Die shouted, "Second brother, where are you going?" He didn't agree and just went there. Wu Die returned to the room and asked the woman. He didn't respond when I called him. He just looked at the road in the county. "I don't know what happened," the woman scolded. "Thieving wanton bugs. How difficult is it to see them?" That guy was embarrassed and had no face to see you, so he walked out. I guess he must have asked someone to move his luggage and not live here, but he didn't tell you to keep him. Wu Dao, he moved, so he had to beg someone else. What a joke. The woman scolded, "Chaos monster. He came to tease me, and he didn't want others to laugh at him. You want to go with him, but I can't be such a person. You divorce me. You just leave him alone." Wu Die dared to speak again. He was scolded by this woman one after another. The couple were chattering at home when Wu Song led a soldier to the room with a pole, packed his luggage, and went out. Wu Die came out and shouted, "Second brother, why did you move here?" Wu Song said, "Brother, don't ask. I'll just pretend to be you when it comes to talking about it." If Wu Die dares to ask for details, moved out by Wu Song. The woman murmured and cursed inside, but it's okay. It's just that it's difficult to exchange debts for relatives. People don't know how a brother who is the head of the family can support his brother and sister-in-law, but he doesn't know how he can bite others. The flowers and papayas are so beautiful in the sky. If you move them here, you will be thankful to heaven and earth, and your enemies will be away from your eyes. When Wu Die saw his wife speaking like this, for some reason, he couldn't let it go. Since Wu Song moved to the county into rest, Wu Die Zikian went to the streets to sell cooking cakes. I was about to go to the county to talk to my brother, but the woman repeatedly warned me not to woo him, so Wu Die did not dare to look for Wu Song. It is said that since Wu Song moved away from his brother's house, more than 10 days have passed without noticing the snow. But it is said that since the magistrate of this county took office, it has taken more than 2 years to transfer a lot of gold and silver, and he has to send all his confidants to the relatives in Tokyo to collect and mail them. And he has been in Hajj for 3 years to manage his superiors. When I first came, I was afraid of villains on the road, so I needed a strong person to go with me. But I remembered due to Wu Song, and I needed this person to solve this problem. On the same day, Wu Song was called to the Yamen to discuss. I have a relative who is an official in Tokyo. His surname is Shumingang. When he was appointed as the prefect of the palace, he wanted to send a load of gifts and a letter to express his greetings. I'm afraid it will be difficult to travel on the way. If you are asked to go, don't refuse to work hard. I will reward you when you come back. Wu Song responded, I have to be praised by others, so I dared to refuse. Since I have been sent, I will go just like this. The county magistrate was overjoyed and rewarded him. I bought Wu Song 3 glasses of wine and paid 12 taels for travel expenses. Not a problem. The woman made many arrangements. Wu Die and Wu Song couldn't sit still after a few glasses of wine, so they all came downstairs, and the brothers said goodbye in tears. Wu Dao, brother has gone, come back early to meet you. Wu Song Dao, brother, you don't do business. You just sit at home. If you have trouble, brother will send someone to see you off. Before leaving, Wu Song then ordered, brother, don't forget what I said. Be careful at home. Wu Dao said, you can take care of it. Wu Song resigned from Wu Da and returned to the lower part of the county to pack his luggage and self-defense equipment. The next day, I received a gift from the magistrate, a pile of gold and silver camels, asked for a trip, and got on the road to Tokyo. It is only said that Wu Da has been scolded by the woman for 3 or 4 days, since his brother Wu Song told him to leave. Wu Da swallowed his words and let him scold himself. He only followed his brother's words and only made half of the cakes every day before going out and returning before it was too late. After resting their burdens, they first removed the curtains, closed the door, and came to sit in the room. Seeing this, the woman felt anxious in her heart and cursed. "I don't know what the time is. I have never seen it." The son closed the cell door in half a day. And the neighbors laughed at me, saying, "How could a forbidden ghost live in my house?" Listen to what your brother said. A bird with eggs in its mouth is not afraid of being laughed at by others. Wu Dao said, "It doesn't matter if he laughs. My brother said good things, and it saved a lot of trouble." The woman spat on his face and said, "Bah, you bastard. You are a man. You don't make the decision, but you listen to other people's orders." Wu Jie waved his hands and said, "Leave it to him. My brother is talking about the language of gold and stone." It turns out that after Wu Song left, Wu Jie just said something every day: return early and close the door when you get home. The woman was so angry that she got angry with him several times. She was used to falling behind, so when Mo Wu Jie came back, the woman went to close the curtains and close the door. When Wu Jie saw it, he was secretly happy and thought, "Is it not good to be weak? There is a poem to Pravit. Close the door carefully and return early. The love in front of you is separated by Chue Wei. The heart of spring is as messy as silk, and the cage will always be empty no matter how hard it is locked." The white horse passed by, the sun and the moon flew by, and then the plum blossoms bloomed, and the weather returned to the sun early. One day, in the bright spring of March, Jin Liang was dressed neatly, waiting for Wu Da to go out, and stood under the curtain in front of the door. About the time he came back, he lowered the curtain and went to sit in the room. One day, when something happened, a man came from under the curtain. Since ancient times, there is no such thing as coincidence. Marriage should be made by chance. The woman was holding a fork in her hand to put down the curtain. Suddenly, a gust of wind blew the fork down. The woman couldn't hold it firmly and hit the man on the head. The woman hurriedly laughed and looked at the man. He was also in his mid-20s and was very carefree. On his head is a tassel hat, a golden bell and a long hairpin, and a jade railing ring. He has a long waist and is wearing green ruffles. At his feet are Chen Chao shoes with fine knot soles and clear watercloth socks. He is shaking the sprinkler in his hand. The Jinshuan fan looks more and more like Zhang Sheng and Panin, the pleasant person. Fang Liu glanced at her from under the curtain. The man was hit on the head with a pole and stood still. When he was about to get angry, he turned around and saw that she was a beautiful and enchanting woman. But I saw his black temples, crescent moon eyebrows, fragrant cherry mouth, straight Qiang Yao nose, thick pink cheeks, delicate silver face, and soft curls. Flower body, slender jade green onion hands, a twisted willow waist, a soft and thick pink belly, narrow star-shaped pointed feet, meaty breasts, white legs, and a tight, white fresh and dark. I don't know what they are. I can't get enough of this woman's appearance. Let's see how he dresses up. But see, wearing a black and oily hair in a bun, there are fragrant clouds in the wind, and small hairpins are inserted all around. Wear a flower in front of the head diagonally, and put a grass comb on the back. It's hard to describe. The willow leaf eyebrows are lined with peach blossoms. The exquisite pendant is the most praiseworthy, and the exposed jade breast is priceless. A long-sleeve shirt made of woolen green cloth, and a short Hunan skirt lined with silk yarn. The cuffs of the Tunghua sweat towel are pierced. The sachet hangs low beside me. The tube top is heavily buttoned down the throat. Looking down, you can see the pointed little feet of golden lotuses, and the clouds are catching crows. The shoes are made of white silk with high soles, and the fragrant dust makes the steps stand out. The red gauze trousers are buttoned with orioles, and the wind blows across her skirt where she walks and sits. The mouth often sprays out fragrant orchids and musk deer, and the cherry mouth smiles with flowers. People were so frightened when they saw it that they showed off and killed their pretty enemies. When the man saw him, he softened half of himself. His anger had already penetrated into the Java kingdom, and his face turned into a smile. The woman knew this, so she crossed her hands and looked at him, bowed deeply, and said, "The slave family was caught by the wind for a moment, and I accidentally killed an official. Don't blame me. It's okay, ma'am, please do it for me." But he was seen by the tea seller living in the wall. The old lady laughed and said, "Who the hell has ever hit someone under this roof?" "He hit you just right." The man laughed and said, "It's not my fault. Don't blame me for the sudden collision." The woman replied, "Officials don't want to be blamed." The man smiled and sang loudly again, and responded, "I don't dare, a villain." The pair of thieves who have been courting women for many years, and are used to coveting coquettish women, never leave this woman. After going and looking back 7 or 8 times, I kept swaying and covering my fan. On a sunny day, I went out for a trip, and I occasionally recognized my shyness from under the curtain. Just because autumn is about to change, it makes the heart of spring uneasy. At that time, when the woman saw the ups and downs of his life, her sweet words made her even more nostalgic. "I don't know his name or where he lives. If he didn't have my affection, he wouldn't look back 7 or 8 times before he left." But he couldn't see the man under the curtain, so he closed the curtain, closed the door, and returned to his room. Illustrations from the Chongzhen edition of The Plum in the Golden Vase. Lady Qiaopan's seduction behind the curtain. The judge heard that. "Who do you think this person is?" But it turned out to be the leader of the team who mocked the wind and the moon, the marshal who picked up greenery and fragrant fragrance, and the high-ranking official of Ximen who opened the herbal medicine shop, and whose surname was Simon. Just because his third concubine, second sister Zhuo, died, he was betrayed. He felt unhappy and walked out on the street, looking for the earl to go there to relax and have fun. But when I passed by the Wu Gate, I didn't want to be hit on my head. But it was said that the senior official from Ximen had seen the woman under the curtain. And when he got home, he thought to himself, "How can such a girl be so successful?" Suddenly he remembered the old woman who sold tea in the wall, and she was like this. And so, I spent a few taels of silver to thank him for making this happen, but it's not worth it. So he didn't even eat, walked out for a walk on the street, and walked straight into Wang Po's tea house, where he went under the water curtain. "Sit down." Wang Po laughed and said, "A high-ranking official can sing very well." Simon King said, "Godmother, come here. Let me ask you, whose wife is this girl in the middle wall?" Wang Po said, She is the sister of King Yama and the daughter of General Wu Dao." "Why do you ask him?" Simon King said, "I am telling you the truth. Don't make fun of me." Wang Po said, "Why don't you recognize the official? His husband is the shop selling cooked food in front of the county." Simon King asked, "Could it be Zusan's wife who sells jujube cakes?" Wang Po waved her hand and said, "No, if it is him, there are also a couple." "Let the officials guess again," Simon King said. "Do you dare to be Mrs. Li San who sells dumplings?" Wang Po waved her hand and said, "No, if it were him, she would have a pair." Simon King said, "Could it be Liu Zhaoer's wife with fancy arms?" Wang Po laughed and said, "No, if it were him, they would be a couple again." "The high officials will have to guess again," Simon King said. "Goddess, I actually can't guess." Wang Po laughed and said, "I'll let the high officials know. His elder brother is Wu Daling who sells cooking cakes on the street." When Simon King heard this, he stumbled and said with a smile, "Isn't it the Wu Daling who people call him the 3-inch dingu tree bark?" Wang Po said, "That's him." Simon said when King heard this, she cried bitterly and said, "How could a piece of mutton fall into a dog's mouth?" Wang Po said, "That's the story. Since ancient times, a horse has carried an idiot on his back, and a beautiful wife often sleeps with her clumsy husband. Yu Xiaolaoqian is so cooperative." Simon King said, "Goddess, how much tea and fruit money do I owe you?" Wang Po said, "It's not much. Let him. It's okay to take a break." Simon King said again, You who did my son Wang Chao go out with? Wang Po said. No, he went with a guest from Huishang. He hasn't come back yet, and he doesn't know whether he will live or die. Simon King said, but if you don't let him and me, that kid is actually very smart. Wang Po said, it would be very good if he was praised by high officials. Simon King said, I won't worry about it until he comes back. After saying that, he thanked him and stood up. About 2 hours later, he walked over to Wang Po's door. The person sitting by the curtain was half rested in front of Wu Gate. Wang Po came out and said, Master, would you like some plum soup? Simon King said, it's better to add more sourness. Wang Po made a plum soup and handed it to Simon King to eat with both hands. Putting down the cup, Simon King said, God damn, you made the plum soup well. How much of it is in the house? Wang Po smiled and said, I have been a matchmaker all my life, so why don't you stay in the house? Simon King laughed. Said, I asked you about this plum soup, but you said you were a matchmaker. How bad is it? Wang Po said, I only heard the senior officials asking how well the matchmaker did. Simon King said, Godmother, since you are the matchmaker, you are the matchmaker. You also act as matchmaker with me and promise a good marriage. I sincerely thank you. Wang Po said, look at this high-ranking official making a show. When the lady in your house learns, how can this old woman have such scratches on her face? Simon said, Qingdou, my eldest wife has the best personality. I see that there are a few people around me at home today, but none of them suit me. You are such a good person, so it's okay to argue with me. If you are the one who turns back, no matter how good the son is, he just wants to please me. Wang Po said, it would be good to have one the day before yesterday. I'm afraid the high officials won't want it. Simon King said, if the time comes, you can make an agreement with me, and I will sincerely thank you. Wang Po said, you are born with 12 points of talent, but you are older. Simon King said, since ancient times, beauties can share the same age. It doesn't matter if they are only 1 or 2 years apart. How old are you really? Wang Po said, that lady is born in Dinghai, a pig. He is 93 years old when it comes to the new year. Simon King said with a smile, look at this Feng woman. She is just making fun of her. After saying that, Simon King stood up with a smile. Seeing that it was getting late, Wang Pocha had just lit the lamp and was about to close the door when she saw Simon King wandering over again, sitting down on the stool under the curtain, and just looking at the front of Woman Gate. Wang Po said, how about a her soup for a high official? Simon King said, it's best. My godmother makes it sweeter. Wang Po quickly took a bell and ate it with Simon King. After sitting until late in the evening, he stood up and said, Godmother, I have recorded the account and will pay you back tomorrow. Wang Po said, let him and Fu Wei take care of it. We will discuss it with you in the future. Simon King smiled. When I got home, I was very restless, and my only mind was on the woman. It was his eldest wife, Yunyang, who saw him being so careless. She just said it was because of the death of second sister Zhuo, but she didn't take any action. Nothing to say that night. In the early morning of the next day, Wang Pocha just opened the door. When she looked out, she saw Simon King walking back and forth in front of the street again. Grandma Wang said, this brush is very tight. Look at me smearing some sweet candy on this guy's nose, and he can't even touch it. That guy is taking advantage of the people in the county, so if you let him come and take some money from me, I don't think so. They are some romantic money makers. It turns out that the old woman who runs the tea house is not a stickler for her duties. She has been working diligently over the years as a matchmaker, a shopkeeper, and a toothpaste. The waist is also very naughty, so elegant that you can't tell what this woman is capable of. But see, Habili Lujia with his open words, but his words were better than those of Sui dynasty. Only by talking about the 6 countries, he can use his words and swords. Just a Luan and a phoenix, they meet each other in an instant and become a pair. A widow and a widower, they say the right thing at the same time. The girl from the 3-mile gate of Ji was envoy, and the immortal from the 9 refuge halls was covered by Mo. The golden boy who served in the Jade Emperor's palace dragged him by his arm. There was a rumor in the Queen Mother's palace that the Jade Girl grabbed her waist and hugged her. He used a treacherous trick to make the Arhat hug the Bhikshuni. Then he used a trap to ask Li Dianwang to hug the devil's mother. Sweet words can seduce a man, like Feng Shi, but he can also be tempted. Soft words can harmonize, and a woman can be like Magu, who has to be promiscuous. Hiding one's head and showing one's tail. He teases ladies to make them lovesick. He sends warmth and steals cold, teases Chang'e and steals men. The woman was opening the door and ranging the teapots in the tea house. Zhang saw Simon King walking past him several times, and running under the water curtain of the tea house. Facing the front door of Woman Gate, Zhang couldn't help but look through the curtain. Mrs. Wang only pushed back but didn't see it. She just fanned the flames in the tea room and didn't come out to ask for tea. Simon King called out, "Godmother, order 2 cups of tea for me." Wang Po responded, "The official is here? I haven't seen you for a few days, please sit down." After a while, she ordered 2 cups of thick tea and put them on the table. On the table, Simon King said, "Godmother, come and have tea with me." Wang Po laughed and said, "I'm not the one you insinuated. How can I have tea with you?" Simon King also laughed. And after a while he asked, "Why? Mom, what is sold in the next room?" Wang Po asked. "He sells pan-fried manzi, dried meat wrapped with vegetable and meat dumplings, clam noodles, hot and mild, spicy and crispy." Simon King smiled. "Look at Mrs. Fang. It's just the wind," she said. Wang Po smiled and said, "I don't have the wind. He has a husband in his family." Simon King said, "I'm telling you the truth. His family does everything according to the law. Good cooking cakes. I want to ask him to buy 40 or 50 pieces and take them to his home." Wang Po said, "If you want to buy cooking cakes, wait until he comes back from the street to buy them. Why go to the door to buy them?" Simon King said, "Godmother, that's right." After having tea, he sat down for a while and then got up and went. For a long time, Wang Po stood coldly in the tea house. He walked east in front of the door, took a look, then turned west, and again, 7 or 8 times in a row. After a while, he walked into the tea room. Wang Po said, "It's a lucky chance that we haven't seen each other for several days." Simon King started to smile, went to his side and took out 1 or 2 pieces of silver, handed it to Wang Po, and said, "Godmother, please take the tea money." Wang Po laughed and said, "Why did you lose so much?" Simon King said, "If there are too many, my godmother only cares about keeping them." The old woman said secretly, "Come on, this brush is a failure. Just keep the money and make love with me tomorrow." "House money," he said. "I think high-ranking officials seem to have something on their minds." Simon King said, "How can my godmother guess it?" The mother-in-law said, "How difficult it is to guess. Since ancient times, no one has asked about prosperity and decline. You can tell by looking at your face. I don't know how much you can guess about the weird things about my body." Simon King said, "If my godmother can guess the thing that is on my mind, I will lose 5 taels to you." "Money," Wang Po said with a smile. "I don't need 3 or 5 guesses. I can guess the middle part with just 1. Official, please listen to me. You have been walking very hard these past 2 days, and you have been catching up a lot. You must be thinking about it." The man in the next room. "What do I guess?" Simon King smiled and said, "My godmother's dish is as smart as Sui He's and as clever as Lu Ji is. To be honest with my godmother, for some reason, I saw him when I was eating his Japanese fur curtain. He looked at me for a while, as if he had taken my 3 souls and 6 souls, and I just couldn't let him go day and night. When I got home, I was too lazy to eat and drink, and I didn't know how to do anything. I wonder if you know how to use tricks." Wang Po laughed and said, "I don't hide anything from the high officials. People say that selling tea in my family is called ghost tea. It snowed heavily on the 3rd day of June 3 years ago. On that day, I sold some bubble tea. Until now, it has not been released to the market. I only rely on some miscellaneous things to support my family." Simon King said, "Godmother, how can you call me a miscellaneous person?" Wang Po said with a smile. Since I lost my husband at the age of 36, I have been unable to live without this little boy. At first, I followed people to match, and then I bought some clothes from others to sell. I hold my waist with others and shrink my body. In my free time, I can also take the lead, do ma bailyu, and also treat patients with acupuncture. After hearing this, Simon King burst into laughter. I didn't know that my godmother had such a method. Tell me this politely. If you want to do something, I will give you 10 taels of silver to make a coffin copy for you. You can make this girl know me. Wang Po then laughed and said, I am just kidding. How can the officials take it seriously? You too. Let's look at the breakdown next time. There is poetry depraved. See, Maney's a prodigal son who works hard to play tricks on his wife. Unfortunately, he killed the old mother of the tea seller and befriended the witch who is Xiang Wang alive.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.